advice.
Yeah.
Self-care is a destination. Or sorry.
Self-care. Welcome to the second official episode of the podcast. I'm Matthew from Moments with Matt, and I'm here with my boss, of all people. So, welcome, Nina. We appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us today. I know you're hella busy. You know, you said, what? I mean, hella, that's a very Northern California thing. If you people don't know, Nina is from the Bay Area. Well,
I'm not from the Bay Area.
she went to school in the Bay Area, so I imagine she knows some lingo.
You know, I actually
But-
know that word before I even met anybody from the Bay Area. I started
Really?
saying it in middle school, and then, I don't know, it just kind of like stuck.
Oh,
And then I found
okay.
out it was a Bay Area thing. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But
Yeah.
people don't believe me when I say that. I'm like, I didn't know any Bay Area people until like high school.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's certain like words that are strictly like region based.
Yeah.
Like in Southern California or SoCal, people are like yeah, no, or no, yeah, or yeah,
Yes.
no for sure.
Yeah.
But like that
no.
means yes or no, or like I'm not gonna do it, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
think about it and stuff like that. So
It's your tone.
oh
It's your
yeah,
tone.
no
It's
for
very
sure.
important.
But again, yeah, thanks for taking some time out of your very busy day. For people who don't know, Nina is the executive director of the Noroozclinic Foundation. So I would imagine you're very busy all the time and you're dealing with so many different kinds of people. But you know, why don't we give the viewers some context? Like, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Nina Huynh. I am, like Matt said, the executive director of the Noroozclinic Foundation. I've been in this role for the last 7 months now. Wow. Yeah, it's July, right? Crazy.
Yeah, wow, 7.
Yeah,
That's
7
insane.
months. Yeah. So I started with this role in January of this year, but I've been with the clinic since 2012. I've been with the clinic since the very beginning. I started out as, you know, volunteering and then admin assistant, doing a lot of like the basic like filing, copying work and all that, you know, fun stuff. So I really built my way up, and then eventually over time really, you know, added more programs and really stepped into leadership roles. And I actually left for a few years to pursue law school. Like Matt mentioned earlier, I left to go to the Bay Area, but I still stayed on as a board member of the Noroozclinic Foundation. And then I came back in 2021. COVID happened, obviously, but I actually stepped into a full-time position back at the Noroozclinic in the end of 2021 as the director of program development. And then few months, about a year later.
Yeah, I think it was a year.
Yeah, about a year later, I became the executive director. Dr. G, our founder and previous executive director, stepped down to really focus more on the clinical side. And so, you know, I stepped up to the plate, and now here we are.
I mean, yeah, other than that, it's been a very interesting 7 months, right? You know, I can't even begin to imagine what that transition process looked like. And, you know, I've always wondered what have been some of the more, like, transition is always hard, like, for anything. But from your perspective, what has been the easiest parts of your transition from director of program development to now executive director, but what have also been the more difficult challenges of this transition?
Yeah, so easier part would be having an amazing team, obviously, like yourself, and I think supporting me in my transition. I think it's been such a great pleasure working with everybody. You guys make it easy, right? Coming in work and just having fun and being there for one another. I would say the hardest part is not really knowing a lot, right? It's like the unknowns of stepping into a brand new position, especially in a position where you're no longer doing programming or you're no longer out there with the community as much. Now you're really you know, overseeing everything at the clinic. You're overseeing the everyday tasks, all the staff, all the new hires. You're overseeing like procedures. It's just a lot of things. And then now I have to work with the board really closely, fundraise, still event planning, and all that, all that fun stuff. So I think that's been a lot to kind of juggle. But I think the hardest part is kind of stepping away from programming, because a lot of the programs I either like helped to create or created myself, and not being able to really be hands-on with like the everyday programming is the more difficult part. But it's hard to do everyday programming, and that's not really what an executive director should be doing. You know, we should be stepping away from programming and really taking on more of leadership and more
Right, right.
managerial roles. So that's been really difficult.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Yeah, so for context, everybody, I don't think Joey knows this either, but when I got interviewed here at the Norooz Clinic, I remember exactly, and I worked with Nina very closely for the past year and a half, and I remember when I first came into the office, we were actually just across the hall a year ago, and I remember walking in, and honestly, like the first thing that I noticed was your drink. And I was like, "Hey, do you go to
My
85 degrees?"
Here's my drink again.
Yeah, no, literally, I think every time I see her, she always has the same drink, and it's not that it's a difficult drink to order, but it's literally like for all those 85 staff employees listening out there, Nina gets a large iced jasmine tea, 0% sweet. So I don't know how people can drink tea just sweet, not sweet, but I mean, I also have a go-to order at 85, and mine is a large.
Hers is 100%.
It's not 100%.
Oh, 50,
50%.
75,
Yeah,
50.
large passion fruit green tea, half
Mm-hmm.
sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something that I think was really interesting when I first met you.
Yeah.
And so it was funny because like we didn't even talk about like the job. We were just talking about I think what we liked for like half an hour, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm here for a job interview. And so I think being on for about a year and a half has been very eye opening and has helped me grow a lot. And you know I originally wanted to do this podcast a year ago, but obviously we didn't have the capacity or the staffing available. But now that we do, I'm glad that we've been able to do this. And again, thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much for, allowing not only myself, but the rest of the team to just, I guess sort of like do their own thing and have that trust in us to be able to, keep the clinic's intentions at heart. And ultimately, what we want to do is to, create a stigma free world, as the website says, which will be linked down below. So
Yes.
I'm wondering, being going to law school, being a director of program development, being an executive director, people must be wondering like, how does she do it? She can't make clones of herself, obviously. And so, how have you been able to sort of find that balance? And I feel like a lot of people have struggles finding like a good work life balance or
Mm-hmm.
a good balance between maintaining different relationships or just doing their own thing. And so, what have you found that works best for you? And maybe it might work for others.
Yeah, no, I think it's a struggle that we all go through every day, trying to juggle work life and just trying to do as much as we can. My philosophy is, while I'm still young and I have energy, I will do as much as I can until I get older and I can't do it anymore.
Right,
So that's
right.
why I try to do a lot of things now that I really like, and whether that's here at the
Hmm.
clinic or other stuff on the side. I also have a jewelry business. I have a media production with my fiance, and I also teach on the side at
Oh,
South Coast
okay.
College. So I try to do a lot of these things because, like I said, I'm still young and I'm
Yeah.
still healthy and I still have a lot of energy, and it gets me going. I think having goals in life and doing things that you want to try and you wanted to do for the longest time, but you kind of
Hmm.
just jump in to do it. I think it's like risky, right? But it's also, it gives me a purpose in life. I
Okay,
think that's what
sick,
keeps me
sick.
going. But also, I mean, I struggle with finding balance. I mean, I find a lot of times I find myself burnt out, especially when I was in law school, actually. I found myself really burnt out. But I have come to, you know, a place where I'm finding my third space. And I actually have a therapist. So I see my therapist weekly. And we talked about having a third space, a space where it's just you, it's just yourself, right? And so the first space is like work, professional life.
Hmm.
Second space is like your family, friends,
Right,
significant other,
right.
whatever it is, right? Your personal life. And then your third space is really just for yourself, just for you to
Oh,
just
okay.
be yourself and do
Yeah.
whatever you want to do, but on your own. And so
Right,
for me,
right.
like my third space is reading, going to Pilates, getting my favorite matcha rose latte, right? Or just wandering
Oh,
somewhere,
okay.
walking somewhere by myself, just maybe window shopping or just
Right,
going
right.
to like a library or something. It's like that third space. And I'm always, finding new ways to add to that third space, but I think it's so important when we talk about self care. I know it's cliche because people talk
Right,
about
right.
self care a lot, but what I've realized is self care is not a destination. Self care is a journey. It's not a destination. It's not something where
Yeah.
you would say, okay, let me just take 2 weeks off. You're burnt out, right? Let me just take 2 weeks off to go on a vacation. You go on
Hmm.
that vacation, and you, at the end of the vacation, you still feel burnt out. How
Yeah.
come? How come you still feel burnt out? A lot of times we ask ourselves that, right? I
Right.
find myself doing that too. It's like, oh, I take some time off, but then it's not enough, right? We always ask ourselves, it's not enough. It's not enough to recharge, even though like you've gone on 2, 3, 4 weeks vacation. So, but then you need to realize that it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen just because you say, okay, let me just put a pause on work, right? Or let me just put a pause on my life, because you're
Right.
gonna go back to that,
Hmm.
right? Even though, and you're gonna go back to the same routine that you haven't even
Right.
done anything about, right? So I believe that every single week, or every single day, you should be intentional with what you do. I think we throw around that word a lot, but people don't understand the intentionality behind your actions, right? Um, for an example, like hanging out with friends or hanging out with your family, like you want to be intentional. It's
Hmm.
okay to say no to certain things, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
okay to say, I'm going to prioritize myself today. I'm not going to hang out with people. I'm just going to hold myself up in my room and read a book, or I don't know, read something, or just do nothing. That's okay. I think, are conditioned to think that if we don't do anything with our lives, or we don't do anything in the day that we're off, we feel guilty,
Right.
right? And so, but it's okay to not do anything when you're on your day off, or you're intentional about everyday things. Like maybe you take a small break throughout the day, you get your favorite drink like once in a while,
Right. Right.
you take a walk somewhere, but you should have at least some sort of a plan, right? Whether it
Mm.
be talking to like a mentor, or spending time with your family, or even seeking a therapist, right? We should be intentional with what we do, and not just try to do everything at once, because I made the mistake of trying to do everything at once, and then you kind of get burnt out quickly.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having that third space.
Hmm.
You know, one could say it's my space for those
My space.
millennials in the room that remember what MySpace was
Yes.
back in the day. But yeah, no, I think people have a hard time separating themselves from their work or from certain obligations, because
Hmm.
it's like they need those things to feel like they're doing something with their lives or they're
Yeah.
being productive. And, I think corporate America has taught a lot of people that, and that's why we have a lot of struggling issues, especially now with like the new workforce coming in.
Hmm.
These people are demanding so many different things. Then you have people of the older generation like, oh yeah, when I was working, I didn't get paid overtime, but I did like 80 hours a week, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. They don't understand what hard work is. And I'm like, look, we understand what hard work is, but we also understand that we don't need to overwork ourselves
Yeah.
to work hard,
And I think it's there should be a healthy balance,
Hmm.
right? You don't want to rest to the point where you're not doing anything anymore, because
Right, right.
I believe purpose and goals, having goals in life, having something that you work towards, to in life, gives a meaning to
Hmm.
one's life, right? Gives a purpose. For me, if I were to stop doing anything like tomorrow, I would get bored in 2 hours. I would find my life kind of meaningless.
Mm.
And it's not just like doing it for myself, but it's doing it for everybody too.
Right,
Now that I'm
right.
in this role, I am no longer thinking about myself. I'm thinking about all of you guys, right? I'm thinking about all the staff, all the interns, all volunteers, and what I can do to like make everyone, like livelihood like better in a way, like, right? And if I can make a difference, a positive difference in someone's life, like that makes me happy, and not for a selfish reason, but for
Right.
a more like beyond. I don't really know how to describe it, but it makes me feel um, really like humbled, and
Mm.
really like proud, right? And so I think it's with that, like it gives me a purpose in life, and so that's why I think it's really important to have a balance.
Yeah.
You want to work towards the purpose, but you don't want to overwork and burn yourselves out.
Right,
I think that's
right.
that's what we all struggle with. That's the hard part.
Yeah, I think just being able to understand that in and of itself is very
Hmm.
difficult for a lot of people, because, societal norms and cultural norms have us pegged that we have to do
Hmm.
this specific
Yeah.
way. And, I know a lot of the times, at least for me, there's a lot of cultural implications behind it. And so, my next question is, being an Asian American executive director, which for people who don't know, it's very rare to find Asian American women in executive roles. Sorry. So that in itself is, breaking quote unquote like norms already.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, you're not immune
Mm-hmm.
to certain challenges or certain obstacles that you face as being an Asian woman in an executive role. And so for our viewers, I wanted to know like what have been some of those challenges, and how has your culture influenced you in terms of like your leadership style and how you run a nonprofit mental health organization.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good question. I personally don't think about this at all because for me, I come into work every day knowing that I'm making a difference in other people's lives,
Mm,
regardless of whether I'm Asian American or a
right, right.
woman. I believe that I'm confident enough and competent enough to really take the nurse clinic to the next level and to sit at a table with the big boys, right? The big dogs.
Yeah.
And I'm confident enough to say what I want to say and do what I think is best for all of us, is
Hmm.
best for the mental health community. I really, as far as challenges, I actually don't know if had any challenges when it comes to being Asian American and woman because I
Right.
think people do respect what I have to say. And if they don't respect what I have to say, I really don't pay attention to it, really. Because I know at the end of the day, we are doing the good work.
Right, right.
Yeah. And I don't really surround myself, and I think that's why intentionality is so important.
Mm,
I don't really surround myself with people that are negative. If they have bad things to say, I think the biggest advice is to advocate for yourself and not to be afraid to speak up. And another one that goes along with all of that is to stay humble because if you speak up in coming from the sense of that's entitlement or coming from a sense of I know it all, I'm better than you, then people may not respect you as much, right? But if you are coming from the angle that you're speaking up, you're strong on what you believe in, but you're also are willing to learn and to make mistakes and to be okay with being wrong. I think that's a much better angle to tackle. And so if you walk into a meeting and you don't speak up at all, you're gonna live with the regret that you didn't speak up, but you should have spoken up, right?
right, right.
And maybe you could have really enriched the conversation, regardless of what the people around you, regardless of their age or experience, because there's everyone has something to contribute,
Mhm.
right? So regardless of how old you are or where you're coming from, you have something that others can learn from, and others have something that you can learn from. So it's important to always be humble, to always be open to learn, to always keep an open mind, but to also be stern and to speak up, speak your mind, and to really don't falter, right? Like, don't just, if someone like, oh, you know what, like, I don't know, and then you kind of sway. Like, if
Right.
you know your idea is good, like, believe in your idea. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Be
no.
strong.
Again, thank you so much again for coming out and having some time to sit down with us. And I imagine executive directors are very busy all the time, so being able to carve out this particular time with us and with our viewers, I think is very special and very rare because it's not every day you get to sit down with an executive director for like half an hour, 20
Yeah.
minutes, and things like that. So, that being said, I think we're just gonna end it off here. But again, thank you so much for being here on the podcast Moments with Matt. If you want to learn more or
Moments
want
with
to
Matt.
keep in touch with us, follow us on social media we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
TikTok.
TikTok. We're on.
go.
I think we're on Threads now, which
We
is
are on
interesting.
Threads. Yes, we are.
So-
We're on YouTube too.
Yeah, it's
I
weird.
mean,
We
this
don't.
is gonna be on YouTube.
We're on
Subscribe.
YouTube.
Subscribe,
Anyways,
comment.
as
whether
chaotic
it's good
as
or
this
bad.
seems, comments were professionals. Okay, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
That has the call sheet, but I have it on paper. Milk tea stain on it.